Okay, so now that you've got really the QuarterHorse chip in and all the the software's in place, the next thing to do is to configure the software, confirm that your QuarterHorse is making good connectivity with the software. I'll show you a couple different settings that you can adjust in there to put it in different modes depending on if you want to run it on a single bank or if you want to have multiple tunes loaded to different slots. So I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll show you an exercise to clear out the memory and then to load up your first tune. So first things first, once you open Binary Editor, you'll look down at the bottom, and right now I have no chip plugged in, so you'll see that it says hardware changed to none. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hook up my QuarterHorse. It does not have to be plugged into the car's computer while you do this, and basically just hit the mini USB here. So plug that in. And now it says hardware changed to QuarterHorse at the bottom. So that's the first good sign that things are working for you. So now what you'll be able to do is go over to the Hardware tab. And over on the left, you see this checkbox here that says Motes Enable. So you'll make sure that that box is checked. And then you go down to this QuarterHorse config. And if it has good connectivity, this box should pop up. If it doesn't, you'll get an error, something about, there's no FTDI device connected. Something along those lines. So if you see that warning message before this box pops up, then you need to take another look at those drivers and from the previous video, make sure that stuff's installed. So the next thing you'll want to do, when you buy a brand new QuarterHorse, they're going to come in here with some things that at least show up in the different slots, but they're kind of junk, like it's just a random string of nonsense characters for the tune name. So what you can do here first is down here at the very bottom of this pop-up window, there's a clear RAM button. So what that'll do is that will wipe all of the different slots that are on this machine, or on this QuarterHorse chip, and you'll get that little pop-up to confirm that you want to do that, and that'll clear out the entire thing. And you notice it's going through all the banks. So there's the first bank, then the second, and there's 8 total slots here in this computer. And since the number starts with 0, that means it's actually only going to go up to 7 instead of going all the way up to 8. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's the last one. Okay, it's finished. And so now the other thing you'll notice here is where it says Calibration Information, now this says NA. And so once you do load a tune onto this chip, that's where you'll see the name of your tune. And that's a good way that you can also confirm if you ever have a suspicion that the chip lost its tune or you had to replace the battery or something weird in the chip, down the road. You can always just plug the chip back in and just check it. And if the tune name is there, it's probably still good. Okay, so now that you clear the RAM, the next thing you want to do is I just at least want to show this to you. So we're in basic mode right now, but there's also an advanced mode. And in the advanced mode, depending on which one of these modes you check, you'll have various possibilities over here. So mode 0 factory tune, that's not really something you would use with this chip. But if you go into having 2 4-bank tunes or 4 2-bank tunes, you'll see these different options pop up over here. And you can ultimately load independent tunes to each slot later on if that's what you want to do. You can also from this screen clear out the individual tunes. So if you don't want to lose all the tunes, just one, that's fine. Really about the only combinations that I see that we would want to load multiple tunes on, primarily it's going to be the nitrous tunes. If you're using a dry nitrous shot, meaning that the nitrous kit itself doesn't have additional solenoids to throw additional fuel in with the nitrous, then you've got to do something in your tune to get extra fuel coming through your fuel injectors. So ultimately, you're probably going to want to have a nitrous tune and a non-nitrous tune at least. The other application sometimes is if you want to have an E85 tune and a pump gas tune, or a pump gas and a race gas tune, something like that. You might want to have a few different ones, but totally up to you. But most other cars and combos that are not nitrous, it's usually just one tune. If it's done well, you can just about get the best of everything in one tune. Drivability, good idle, good power, safe power, everything where it needs to be. So just letting you know there's some possibilities there. Now, one other thing I'll tell you about is Motes does sell, and this is something else that eventually, if I ever get this website launched, you'll be able to buy it through the website. But it's a dial, or a little like a plug that has a dial on it that goes into a secondary slot on the QuarterHorse, and it allows you to change your tune whenever you want. And the same thing goes, there's the F3 V2 chip, so if you decided to use like a Jaybird with just the chip that gets flashed, same thing, it has a port there, it can run multiple tunes, and you can use that selector dial, and I think it's about $30, I'd have to go check the price, but it's an easy way that you can just kind of route that up to your glove box or something, and really anytime you want, you can just flip the switch and change tunes, so it's nice and convenient. Okay, so what I would recommend most people do if this is their first time, once you've cleared out all the RAM, put it back in basic mode and hit OK. And now we're going to attempt to load a file. So what we'll do first is we'll go back to the tuner tab, and you have to load your strategy and your calibration. So for right now, let's just load a stock tune using the free strategy. So what I'm going to do is go up to the top, open strategy, and back to this directory we talked about in the previous video, your C drive, binary editor, def. Here's all the free strategies that come with binary editor. So I'll pick like the C-Baza, double click on the Excel file, and you can now see down at the bottom, it shows that that's the strategy that's loaded. That's how you can sort of confirm that. Once you do that, now you need to load a calibration, and this is your actual tune that's built on top of that strategy. So you'll go to open calibration, and I will go just out to the stock location. So C, binary editor, def, C-Baza, and then I'll pick like the T4MO. And when you're working with the free strategies, your calibration is going to be a bin file. These BEBs that you see in here, this is actually an encrypted file that's used in conjunction with the Sailor Bob strategies that I also have some copies of. So just keep that in mind. You load up the calibration you want, and then down here at the bottom it says strategy C-Baza, calibration T4MO. So every time you open a tune, this is important too as we go back and forth with tune revisions, I've seen a glitch occasionally where you try to open a calibration, it says it looks like it loaded, but it really didn't, and it still just has a previous tune there. So always double check after you open a tune, look at the bottom and make sure it's got the right tune name, and if it doesn't, go open the calibration a second time and just select it again, make sure that you're getting what you need to. And then once you're done here, now you can see up at the top these read, write, update, connect buttons. These are all lit up. So this is basically all the different options you have as far as reading or writing a tune and interacting with the chip. And if these buttons are grayed out here, this is more evidence that for some reason your QuarterHorse isn't successfully connecting to the software, and there's something else going on. So if I want to take this entire tune, which I'm going to do now because it's my first tune, I can do a write. Now another option you have, there's this little down arrow below it. There's also a write to all. So if you're doing anything where you technically are allowing multiple banks and you can put the tune on any bank, you can use this write to all. It takes 8 times as long to write because it has to write it over and over and over again. But that's a good starting point if you're going to use any of the multi-bank strategies for the QuarterHorse. But I'm just going to do a normal write. You can see the progress bar at the bottom left corner. It doesn't take very long. That wrote an entire tune. Took about 3 seconds. Then once we do that, let's go back to the hardware tab, and we'll go back into the QuarterHorse config on the left, and now you can see the name of the calibration right there, T4MO.bin. So again, further confirming that it successfully wrote to the QuarterHorse. So that's how you get the tune on the QuarterHorse, and it doesn't matter, again, you can have the QuarterHorse on the car when you do this, you can have it just sitting here outside of the car and do it that way, it's totally fine. It shouldn't lose its memory as soon as you unplug the USB cable, so if I want to unplug this from my laptop and go out there in the garage right now and plug it in, I should be able to do that. That's why the chips have a battery on it. The battery, could be dead, and they are replaceable. At least the more modern QuarterHorse chips are. The previous ones weren't. They originally had ones that I think it was just kind of all one component. So I think it technically could be replaced, but it required some soldering and things like that. So anyways, that's how you get the QuarterHorse chip configured within here. That's how you get your first tune loaded on it. Now, the other thing I would encourage you to do, because most of you are going to build off of a stock calibration as your starting point, but then you're going to go make a bunch of changes. So really what I would recommend you do is once you load up the strategy and the basic calibration you're going to start with, I would immediately encourage you to go to Save, do Save Calibration, and then save this as a new file. And all of my tune revisions always come in numbered. I'll always have something like, the name of the calibration that we started with, your name, and then tune 1 and some kind of a description you know, what's in that tune. And then as we do different revisions, it'll go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Makes it really easy for you to always make sure you're on the, you know, the tune that you think you are when you look down at the calibration. So anyways, just wanted to kind of let you know that. Now, there's one more thing that I want to point out before I shut this video down, and that is that, you know, now when you're ready to go data log with this thing, over here on this data log screen, there's a checkbox down at the far bottom right corner that says Enable Logging. You must have that box checked in order for the system to save your data logs. If you do not have that box checked, you will hit the data log button at the top when you're ready to start running a data log. It will, you know, all the gauges inside the software and all the stuff looks like it's logging, but it's not actually saving anywhere. So it's something you can look at while the car's running, but then it's gone. So you need to make sure you've got this checkbox down here checked. The next thing you want to do is determine how fast you want it to capture data from the QuarterHorse and save that into the log file. The default is 50 milliseconds. So that means basically once every 50 milliseconds, it's going to, you know, go capture information for all the different tags that you have turned on here. And then that kind of builds your log. So the lower this number is, the more information you're getting. But depending on the speed of your computer, and this goes back to the hardware spec thing we talked about in an earlier video, you know, if you're running a really cheap, very low performance laptop, you'll probably find that if you try to run this at a lower number, like, you know, 20 or 10, you might have some crashing and some errors that occur when you're doing data logs. So it's something you might want to experiment with. You know, this is a pretty decent laptop that I'm running here. This is a, you know, quad core i7. You know, it's a pretty decent machine. So, you know, with this one, I've been able to push it down to 10 milliseconds, which is actually as low as it'll let you go. And that's always works just fine for me. Now, keep in mind also that the more data you capture, the bigger your logs are too. So if you're really concerned with storage, you might think about it, but log files are pretty small overall. And last thing about logs for now is that when you go to this location button right here, this is going to tell you what directory on your computer are you currently storing this stuff to. So what you'll need to do is select a folder that you feel comfortable with as the place that it's going to save the logs, because once you start data logging, it's automatically saving that. There is no save button. You don't tell it later on after the log that you want to save a copy. It just, as soon as you start the log, it's logging. Of course I can't because I'm not hooked up to the computer right now. And then when you're done, this would become a stop button. You would hit stop, and it saves the instant you hit stop. And then if you go browse out to that directory that you specified here, then you'll be good to go, and you can grab that file. All the log files are going to save as a .csv file, a comma separated value file, and you should be able to email those over when you need to. So anyways, that's the kind of the software side of hooking up your remote to QuarterHorse and making sure that you've got the right mode selected, clearing the memory, making sure you've got a good strategy and calibration loaded, how to write that tune. Final note. You can also, if you want to make changes to the tune while the car's running, you can do that with this, and it's one of its, you know, absolute best features of this tuning system. So if the car was running right now and I go in and change, you know, a number, doesn't really matter what it is, you notice that the right and the update buttons light up. If I hit this update button, it'll take any of the changes that are currently highlighted within the tune, really anywhere in the tune you've gone, and it just applies all those changes in real time. So it's a really nice way to make instant changes without having to turn the car off, turn it back on. That's what it's there for. It's not going to hurt anything, and you can update it anytime. Should be just fine. So pretty cool stuff, guys. Good luck. Godspeed.